Hey everyone, Reaper here again with another video. This time, this is a video that I've been asked to do a couple of times over the last few months, and I figure, well, let me finally do it. It's not going to be a terribly long video, but it's, as you can tell by the title of it, it's about investing and, comic book investing and all that stuff that always seems to be a very hot topic when it comes to our hobby. So, the following is just my opinion on it. It doesn't mean that I'm right. It doesn't mean I'm wrong. So you could take it with a grain of salt. It's not meant to be gospel to anybody, but it's just the way I feel on things. Now, like I said, none of us are infallible. So, like I said, it doesn't mean that everything I say is absolutely correct. I'm only going to talk about older books because, to be quite frank, I don't know too much about these newer books out there or variants or anything like that. There are so many other people in the community that you could watch their videos and listen to them that would give you far better advice on those subjects, on those books than I can ever do. So I'm not going to cover that because I'm not that educated on it. I know a couple of things, I have my thoughts on it, but for me to actually give a lot of sound advice on it, I can give some, but not too much. There are other people that could do it so much better than I can do it. So I would just watch one of their videos if you know who I'm talking about, or looking them up on on YouTube. I can only talk about stuff that, like older stuff, because that's mainly what I collect, Okay, my thoughts on investing. I don't have a list of books. I mean, I'll name a couple that might be of interest, but I really don't have a whole, list of books to talk about that you should pick up and invest in and all that stuff. I personally think, and I think a few people, I don't want to say their names because I might get it wrong. My memory's good, but sometimes it may not be so good. But I think there are quite a few people that would agree with me on this. I think if you're going to invest into comic books, now this is just talking for investing, the best thing to invest in is, some of the best things to invest in are some of those high grade or mid grade Marvel Silver books. And I'm talking like the premier books, like Fantastic Four 1, Amazing Fantasy 15, those Tales of Suspense 39. I think those books, in the long run, now I don't know if things are going to go down in value anytime soon, but what goes up, I think, sometimes must come down. That may apply. I think that applies to most things, not everything. But I think if you are able to spend the money on those type of books, I think any grade, to be quite frank, is good, with some of those books. I mean, for those of you that have a Batman #1 out there, now that's not a Silver Age book, but for those of you that have a low grade Batman #1 and you were able to pick it up for a cheap price, would you say that that's a pretty good investment for the future? If you wanted to sell it, I would say it is. Would you say that a restored Batman #1's a pretty good investment if you picked it up cheap? I would say it is, because that is a book that's always going to hold some level of value. Sometimes it goes up and stays that way. Sometimes it may go down a little bit, but it's definitely a liquid book that could easily be moved, I feel, in any condition. Well, I think that's the same with a lot of those early Silver Marvels. Now, when I say early Silver Marvels, I mean the books I just mentioned. I'm not talking about other ones. I don't think that some of the other ones, like Incredible Hulk, 102, Captain America 1, Captain America 100, excuse me. I don't think they're as investment, as investment good, or good as investments as other books, because the fact of the matter is they're not their first appearances, and people want first appearances. If you have collectors out there that have money to spend, they're going to want those higher grade books, those mid grade books, and they're more willing to spend the money on those those keys, like the Amazing Fantasy 15, Amazing Spider-Man 1, and so forth. But if we're talking about things that may go down in value, I think that books like the Captain America 100 and so forth, they might take a bigger hit than Fantastic Four 1. I just think so. And I think that, if you're planning to hold on to that book for a while, I'm sure it's going to increase in value, and the value might be good. And if you do decide to sell it down the line, you'll probably make what you put into it, and maybe and some more. But I think in the scheme of things, what you can make on it, unless you got it really, really cheap, if you bought a high grade copy and you got it really, really cheap, I don't think this, in the scheme of things, it's going to be really worth it. That's just me. I could be wrong. I don't think I am, though, on that. Because, when it comes to making money on these books, it depends on what you put into them. If you're buying high-grade books of Fantastic Four 1, I keep saying that because that was the recent book I bought, but mainly like Amazing Fantasy 15, Incredible Hulk 1, if you're spending a decent amount of money on those books, okay, I think the return on those could be really, really good. But you have to sit there, you have to get in touch with your inner dealer and say to yourself, how much am I willing to spend on this to make a decent amount of money? In the long run, I think those books are great. I think you'll do quite well on those. Whether it's a few years from now or decades from now, I think you're going to be doing fairly well. Because even if they do go down a little bit, I don't think it's going to be that much, because people are always going to want those books, especially people with money. And to be quite honest, even those low grades, you're going to need some money to get those books. So I think those are relatively safe if you're looking to invest. When it comes to other things, it's like I said, it depends on really how much you spend nowadays. If you're spending large amounts of money on key books, now ETA Nick said, not every key book is a key book. If you're spending large amounts of money on certain silvers, certain Bronze Age books, I don't think you're going to get a big return unless, and this goes with everything, not just these books I'm mentioning, everything, unless you plan to flip them fairly soon. For instance, let's say, like for those that, I think ETA Nick used this example because I think it's a great example. The Marvel Premiere 15, the first appearance of Iron Fist, you have a high-grade copy and you're able to get it cheap before for those that were able to get it cheap before the boom of the TV series, and where that book, high grade or even mid grade, was going for a decent amount of money, a large, sizable difference between what you paid for it and what it's going for, and you were able to flip it quick, I think you probably made a lot of money. And I think for situations like that in the future, where you're able to buy a book cheap before a TV series explodes or before a movie comes out, and you're able to flip it right before the movie or the TV series and make a decent amount of money, I think there's a lot of money to be made when it comes to a lot of different books. But if you're planning to hold on to it for a long period of time, you should use Iron Fist as an example, because I think the book crashed. I think the TV series generally did not get favorable reviews from fans and from reviewers, but everyone, to each his own, right? You may have liked it. I didn't watch too much of it. I didn't mind it, but it wasn't one of the TV series that I said I really wanted to stick with, but like I said, to each his own. But, I think in flipping quick, you can make a sizable amount of money. And I think there are very few books out there, no matter what grade, if you're planning to hold on to them for decades, you're going to make a sizable amount of money, something that is really significant. You might make some money, and, some money helps, right? But if let's say you bought a book for $3,000, and you later flipped it down the line and you sold it for $6,000. Well, you made $3,000. You made your money back and you doubled your profits. That's good. But I think in the scheme of things, $3,000 is not a whole lot of money, especially if you're out on your own. You own a house. You have to do things like repairing things with the house. Things happen, right? You got to get a new car. Of course, that extra $3,000 chips away at whatever it is you have to pay for. But if you're putting in new windows in your house, I'll tell you something right now, $3,000 is not a lot of money. So that's what I say when I say the scheme of things. In the scheme of things, sure, it helps out a little, but you're not going to, strike it rich. And I'm not saying people are planning to strike it rich, but I'm just thinking in those terms. But I do think that some of those, if you're looking for Marvel, looking at Marvel, some of those big, I mean, let's take a look at DC. I think some like books like Showcase 4 is a good one because it goes for ridiculous amounts of money right now. And I think it will hold its value. It is the first Silver Age Flash, and I think the Silver Age Flash is much more popular than the Golden Age Flash. I mean, it's not nearly as valuable, right? But Barry Allen is still a very popular character. And having Showcase 4 is a treat. And I think that's one of the books that in the long run, the short run and the long run, is very good if you're looking for an investment or looking to make some money, down the line. I think it's good. That's just me. And of course, the ones I talked about at length earlier. So I really think, though, the best amount of money that could be made when it comes to investing is through flipping. Now, I don't really flip too much. I just flip to make upgrades to my collection. I buy low grades because I rather have the book, and some of the low grades I buy, I can flip for a decent amount of money. But for instance, let's talk about EC. I mentioned EC in the last video. If you're going to spend big money on EC, I don't think it's worth it. That's just me. Because, well, EC books, and I think it goes for all of them, they go up a little, and they sort of hover there. It's not like the superhero ones where, like I said, if a character is named in a movie, it spikes, right? And there's maybe you could buy it cheap and sell it high and make, some money with a lot of characters. EC sort of just stays there. They're expensive, but they sort of just hover there. Sometimes they go up a little. They might go down a notch, but they usually just stay there. So for those that are looking to get into high-grade ECs like those Gaines file copy, you're not making your money back. If you're a die-hard collector or a high-grade EC, you're not making your money back. Or at least you're not making very much back. I don't think so. Those, I would say, are not good investments. I collect them because I like EC. And if you like EC, then you collect them. That's fine. But I don't necessarily think that they're super good investment to get into. That's just an example. They sort of just stay in one spot. And to be quite frank, a lot of the Goldens do too. I mean, how much more is a Batman #1 going to go up? Sure, it's going to go up a lot. But they sort of just stay at that very high price, I mean, unless it's a super high grade, they just sort of stay there. And they're expensive to get. And people do want them. But I think right now the best market is the Marvel Silvers because they're just like, Amazing Fantasy 15 is going for an astounding amount of money. Low grade, restored, mid grade, high grade. Is it worth holding on to for many years? I think so, because I think the money you can make is just gonna keep rising. It's one of those books that's just it's definitely, I would say it's in any top 5 comic books. Someone's top 5 list of comic books, of course, being Action #1. Detective 27 #2. I would definitely say that Amazing Fantasy 15 is somewhere on that top 5. It's no joke. And if you have an Amazing Fantasy 15, you're in good shape in any grade, and that's definitely a book worth holding on to for a while, or flipping, soon, whatever. It's up to you. I think either way it goes well. So those are just my opinions on investing in comics. Sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, that, hey, not every key is really a key. But I just think that sometimes that's reality, I'm not saying that every key you buy is going to crash. No, I mean, I'm sure books are going to hold some level of value, but I'm just trying to bring into reality that I think in the scheme of things, although you make some money, it's not going to be a whole lot of money unless it's one of those books I mentioned, like those top tier Marvel Silvers and of course the top tier Golden DCs. I mean, of course, but not everybody has that kind of money to spend. Not everybody has that kind of money to spend on high grade books. And for what you spend on high grade books, you have to ask yourselves, if you're the type that wants to flip it in the short run, is it worth it? Are you really going to be making a lot on your investment? a lot of capital on your investment. So just some things that, the way I feel about investing. There are plenty of other great videos, more informative videos out there in the community that could probably give you better ideas than me that have been doing this for years. Check them out. I mean, I don't know necessarily who they all are, but I'm sure for those that really go through the YouTube comic book community and see a bunch of people like ETA Nick, he's, very mindful, very smart when it comes to investing. And there are many others that have been in the game for very long, could probably give you better tips than I can. But that's just my take on it. I did this video because I've been asked to do it, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. But that's just the way I feel. But once again, just want to let you know that I'm not, infallible. I just try to follow my advice for me, and I think it's, believe me, I've made mistakes too when it comes to buying books. I buy books because I like to have them, and there are sometimes I've bought books because I thought they were investment. Some turned out to be okay, some not so okay. I just speaking about the subject, from what I've learned that maybe some other people could learn too, to avoid certain mistakes or to maybe get in on something, Well, I hope you liked the video. I'm going to be making another video, my top 12 books want list for 2018. Some may be considered hot books, some may not be considered hot books, but it's what I want. And hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you all soon. Take care.